reverse racism, to get rid of the detrimental effects of racism.
Sure, yeah, because it seemed like whenever there was like legitimate concerns that were brought up, it seems like he's just so drowned in privilege that it's just so easy to just dismiss every concern as just saying, oh, they're a fucking victim cult, let's just grow up and move on.
Right.
Such a privileged dismissal. It's disgusting how somebody with that kind of prominence can dismiss such legitimate concerns with such a petty-ass argument.
Yeah, I think one of the things that he is missing with his whole attitude seems to be, okay, sure, racism exists. Sure, racism is a factor, but it's not a very serious factor, which I think is mischaracterizing things.
Sure.
But even worse than that, he's saying that when black people say that it's a serious factor, don't listen to them because they're just part of a victim cult.
God
and
damn.
I think that is fairly upsetting, especially when he, seems to kind of contradict himself. Because on one side of the issue, he'll say, yeah, racism exists. On the other side, he says it's not a very serious factor. It's not something that we should, really take seriously and do something about. And something that Malcolm X once said, that is basically, quote, it's criminal to teach a man not to defend himself when he's a constant victim of brutal attacks.
Absolutely.
That if you have a group in American society that, according to every study that we've ever done on the subject, is treated like a second-class citizen, if you say, well, you just have to accept that as your fate, and you can't work to change society to make things better for, your group when you're treated as second-class citizens, to me, I think that quote is right. That's criminal to teach a man that they can't, or teach anyone that they can't fight back when they're basically being victimized by society and society's telling them, well, you just have to accept that as your fate. And I think that's something that the Amazing Atheist is really trying to nail down for a lot of black culture. So that's discouraging to me, especially when, atheism is only about a lack of belief in God or gods. Like, I completely sign up for that. But a lot of black individuals are coming from a very tightly knit religious community, and they're looking for somewhere to go.
Right.
So, the predominantly white atheist culture, people who happen to be atheists, if somebody as influential in that culture as the Amazing Atheist is basically saying, don't listen to black individuals when they're talking about things that are going on in their lives, no matter how real those things are, no matter what the statistics say, then you're really alienating black individuals who are looking for a home outside of religious culture. They don't really have anywhere to go. And I've heard from several black individuals who have said this. They can't go to atheist communities because atheist communities are going to alienate them, since they're not going to listen to their experiences and say, oh, you're just part of a victim cult, and dismiss them. And then it's harder for them to go back home to their religious communities because they're atheists.
Sure.
They're kind of stuck in the middle, and I think that's really unfair. And it angers me that that's perpetuated by racism that says black people don't really know what they're talking about. So, that's a big reason why I have to fight back.
What caught my ear the most is when I first heard about this, and I checked out the video, like his responses to the questions from black people and stuff, is that something I'm very ashamed of is my past, when I was very conservative, raised in a very redneck, hillbilly, fucking white trash environment, and was like sympathetic to racist arguments, that I was lucky enough to learn better and move past and spend a lot of my time trying to right those wrongs. And I haven't thought about that kind of stuff for a while until I saw this video, and how closely and like spot on things that TJ was saying resembled the arguments that I used to make and that I used to hear from the community I was raised in. It just sent up such a huge flag that, I don't know, that how spot on it was amazing. And I just could not believe how
really
tone deaf this guy has to be to not see how racist he is. Because there's a lot of shit that I can hear this guy say about atheism and stuff. I'm like, he makes a lot of really good points.
Right.
He's good for a chuckle here and there. But when you hear him talk about other issues, it's like, how can somebody who's so right on this one subject be so fucking wrong about so much other shit?
And I think I hear that from, I know some brilliant Christians too, right? I mean,
yeah,
who are brilliant about just about everything else, except they believe that, morality was basically started by two naked people in the garden eating a fruit at the prompting of a talking snake 10,000 years ago. Like, they literally believe, I'm like, you're smart, you're intelligent. How do you have this area that you don't really, and so, I mean, I used to think that too, as far as like, before I was an atheist, when I was a Christian.
Sure. Yep. So did I.
I had to actually listen, right? I had to actually get past my initial, and you probably had to do this too with the whole race thing. Like,
absolutely.
I had to really get out of my biases. I had to actually say, okay, maybe all atheists aren't just going to hell. maybe they aren't just angry at God. I had to actually listen to them, hear their claims, see how much they were backed up by facts and evidence. And then based on that, I eventually changed. I eventually saw, okay, this is somewhere where I'm wrong. If I hadn't done that hard work, I would still be back in atheism. I mean, I would still be back in Christianity. And I'm sure, I mean, I don't know how, you changed, but I've found for a lot of people, and with a lot of other, prejudices I've personally had to deal with, a lot of it just comes down to the hard work of listening to people, right?
Right, yeah, considering other perspectives.
As opposed to saying, oh, they're just part of a victim cult, or, oh, just, dismissing them out of hand.
Exactly correct. So after you saw this, you wrote a blog post, and you weren't expecting too much to come from that, right? And then it just blew the fuck up.
I was thinking maybe, well, I was upset at the video, so I wrote it in a lot of anger. I was expecting maybe, I get probably an average of around 4,000 hits per blog post. So I was expecting maybe in the 3,000 to 5,000 hit range. But, if I really wanted to, but the thing was, it was about social issues. And it's very hard for posts about social issues to get a lot of hits. If I really was going for clickbait as an atheist, you would say, an atheist on how all Christians are insult. Like whatever insult you can think about Christians, and then just put that in there. That's an easier way to, I know it's partly from blog. I've written about 250 blog posts, and I've been on the top of like all of Reddit and so on a few times, or near the top, like in the top 10 or whatever. But I know that one of the things that plays well sometimes is like, I mean, most of the time, the things that play well are, criticisms of Christians.
Yeah, the more combative posts.
This wasn't so much about, I know people won't believe this listening to it, but because this was about social issues, it wasn't so much about clickbait as it was about, social justice, and something that I wasn't anticipating to get quite as many views. And, how could I have anticipated that, out of all the blogs in the blogosphere, the Amazing Atheist decided to descend on my blog and try to make an example out of me, out of basically saying, this is why you don't disagree with the Amazing Atheist.
Yeah, because he saw that blog post and then went on what was like a 37-minute tirade, like trying to dismantle the whole thing.
Yeah, 37-minute tirade that has about 225,000 or something like that, probably more now, views on YouTube at the moment. And he was going to do another video that day, and he decided to do my blog post instead. It just, infuriated him so much. I guess so there's no way I could have anticipated that, but somehow.
Yeah, he couldn't take being called out, so he lashed out like a toddler and just flipped out for 37 minutes. And
Now, in all fairness, I do want to say, he did try to respond to my points, and I appreciate. I think I said this with Steve Shives too. I appreciate the opportunity to have a conversation. The name of my blog is Barrier Breaker for a reason. I'm not just trying to stay in my echo chamber. I do want to actually have discourse with other points of views.
Did he reach out to you before he made that 37-minute video?
There's millions of atheists out there. I'm just one. They didn't really have a reason to, and I wasn't really looking for him to. I'm not subscribed to him. I don't normally watch his videos. I don't follow him closely. It's just kind of popped up on YouTube and I watched it. So it wasn't like I was looking for him to respond before that moment at all. Okay.
So what's happened since he made that 37-minute video? Where's it gone from there?
Oh, Christ. Well, he made the 37-minute video. And then I made a response video. And the response video, I tried to, and I got somewhat criticized for this, but I tried to be very fact-based. I tried to go to individual studies. I had tried to take him down point by point.
You did a video or a blog post?
In a blog post.
Okay.
I tried to take him down point by point. And some people said, well, you're being too serious. You're taking him too seriously. You just need to take it as a joke.
Oh, fuck that condescending bullshit.
And a lot of people didn't even read it. Like, a lot of his followers were like, too long, didn't read. Which I understand if it's too long, you didn't read it. Just don't comment on it. And then they would say it's too long, they didn't read it. Then they would scroll down to the bottom and make a commentary on how awful my blog post was without even reading the damn thing. I did read through some of the comments on that second post, and I did respond to some that disagreed with me that I thought were actually substantive, that actually were people reading the post and actually, because like I said, the name of my blog is Barrier Breaker. I'm trying to have a conversation. But the people who just came there just to shoot off a baseless insult without even reading the thing, you know, they're not really worth my time. But at the same time, I want to emphasize, if you organize the posts on both ones by best, if you organize the comments on all my blog posts that I wrote on this by best, the highest rated comments are all of people who are supportive, all the way down to like the top 10, 15, 20 or so top rated comments are all of people being positive. Those are the ones that are voted up. So there's a surprising amount of support. The first blog post I read has about 2,300 comments now. I don't really dig into there that much. It's just, it's a shitstorm in there. And then I wrote a third one, basically after I read a few comments, after I had a long conversation with TJ, after I had seen a few videos that people had done on the topic. I was trying to figure out what exactly this victim cult mentality of black culture that these people kept talking about were. And so in a lot of discourse, after a few hours of like sifting through things, I thought I kind of got to the nugget of truth in what they were saying, you know, this victim culture was, or this victim cult was. And so I wrote a sarcastic kind of satire on, you know, how black culture can get out of TJ and company's victim cult.
Okay.
So, in addition to that, I got an amazing amount of support from a lot of bloggers around the internet. People like Greta Christina, Chris Hall, Nikki Massey, Matthew Facciani.
Steve Shives.
Steve Shives, the Naked Diner podcast, you, and just a lot of people, even if they didn't like make a blog post about it, there was a lot of atheists that I really respected, just, you know, posting on Facebook. She posted something on Facebook about this too. They got a lot of support. I also opened up a Patreon account last week, and in less than a week, that went from $0 to right now it's at $58.
Nice, dude.
That was crazy.
Yeah, it's great to see that kind of support.
And anybody who's done the Patreon grind is at my level knows that that's an incredibly fast.
Yeah, and what's really great about that is that the Amazing Atheist, he has a lot of fans. He's a really popular guy, but I don't think that his fan base really represents the atheist community.
Right.
Because when I go to atheist conventions and shit, it's like the same 50 or whatever biggish names or whatever, and then the people who are in the community. I don't really know a whole lot of Amazing Atheist fans who go to conventions or are very active or whatever.
Right.
They're mindless fucking drones who just likes this guy who flips out and shares their views and makes them laugh here and there. So just saying, his audience I don't think is very representative of the atheist community as a whole.
And I think that's the message that needs to get out, because if you go to YouTube and you're looking up atheism, if you were to do that right now, the Amazing Atheist videos are in the top hits.
Yeah.
Pretty much every time you search. So when somebody is looking at when that, African American, when that black person living in America is trying to look into atheism and types in atheism into YouTube, he sees the Amazing Atheist. And if the Amazing Atheist comes across as racist and as representing a community that, doesn't really listen to black culture and labels black culture a victim cult, that is bad for the image of atheism. So even though in these conferences and in these blog posts, individual people are not for the Amazing Atheist, his prominence online tells the lie that he's representative of the atheist community. So that
Absolutely. It's a